Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier, Mike's Instant Movie Review. The First Omen horror film. It's been out for a week or so. I just saw it. Should you go see it? Should you go not? Once again, I say this quite a bit. If you're a horror fan, I'd definitely see this one. I'd see it on the big screen like I did. Dolby Digital, huge screen. I had a wonderful seat, back row. There was no wheelchair folks there in the theater tonight, so I took a wheelchair friend seat and sat very comfortably. And if you love horror films, you'll want to see this one. Now, if you don't, if you're not a horror fan, you'll definitely want to stay away, because a lot of the creepiest or scariest or, women getting abused, all types of things are in this movie. Blood, guts, and gore. So stay away if you don't like horror. Okay? So let's talk about this movie. First off, I stuck around for the end credits, just so you know, unless you want to hear the nice music as you leave the theater and acknowledge everyone that helped make this film. Probably, 500 or 1,000 people contributed in one way or another on the end credits. Big time production. There is no bumper, there's no little teaser for another sequel. There's no little scary, thing at the end or anything. So basically, once the traditional end credits start rolling, end of film, okay? So I stuck around for you fellows and women, if there's any women watching, for that. Also, one thing I noticed, the end credits, the original Omen film apparently was released in 1976. I put the math together, and this is the Messier math. If you take the year 2000, 1976, that's 24 years. Now we're in 2024. You add 24, that's 48 years, okay? So, this movie has lived a lifetime, or this story, whatever you want to call it. And I do feel, with things like Immaculate coming out just about a month ago, with Sydney Sweeney in her chest, and all these other movies we've seen in the meantime, all these horror films with some type of variation on the theme of the child is from the devil is the father of the child. We've seen this variation many times. I guess you would have to say Rosemary's Baby. That's probably overdue for a reboot or a prequel or a sequel, which I can barely remember that. I think Mia Farrow was in that, and I think it even won Academy Awards, but I can't really recall. There's just been a lot of movies, and Immaculate most recently, the same type of storyline, like the nun, she will be impregnated with the seed of the Antichrist. So it's, we're getting to see this. That's the only real, thing I would have against this first Omen movie, is just that by the time the original Omen came out, and I'm not sure what came out first, I think the original Omen, the Omen, came out before Rosemary's Baby, but they all have this same recurring storyline, right? This poor innocent nun or this poor innocent waif gets knocked up by the devil, and then she's got to decide, what does she do with this baby? First of all, it's her child, but second of all, it could ruin humanity. So does she kill it or not? It seems like there might be some underlying subtext of the abortion rights debate underneath this. I don't know. You figure it out. Maybe it's not there. I'm just seeing it because that's all you hear about every day on the news. What else? I do want to say a special hello. I've been reading the comments. There's been some new subscribers, hopefully, some new commenters, some European fellows, which I appreciate, all the way from the UK. Several times I've asked people to explain to me, and they always do, and I always forget, the difference between jolly old England, the UK, and Britain, and somebody very succinctly summarized it for me, yet I still forget. I think they said like the UK was it 3 countries? England, I don't want to get them wrong. I want to say England, dare I say Ireland, or is that wrong? And then all the stuff with Brexit and all these things, it's very complicated for us Americanos. We're over here dealing with our own issues, as I'm sure you're aware. One gentleman enjoyed my take on the lovely actress that we apparently share in common, that we both enjoy her work. Love Lies Bleeding, Kristen, oh, now I'm blanking on her name. The girl from Twilight and everything else, very attractive woman. And she was in Spencer. Now I can remember all the movies, but I can't remember her. Kristen, what the fuck's her name? The girl from Twilight and Charlie's Angels, whatever. We're both big fans of her. Now it's going to bother me. Kristen, God. Kristen, what's her name? Love Lies Bleeding. Kristen, anyway. Let's get back to this. A very wonderful couple of actresses, or many actresses. Sonia Braga was listed in this thing. Now, for those of you that don't know, Sonia Braga was kind of the pre-Penelope Cruz, pre-Salma Hayek, like Latina bombshell that us Americanos kind of approved of. Like, she's old school sex symbol Spanish lady, like going way back to the 80s and so forth. Ask your uncles about Sonia Braga. She was quite the number. And in this one, to be honest, when I saw her name in the end credits, why wouldn't I be honest? I couldn't remember which one she played, because she must, no offense, but be older now, and was one of these nuns, and I just didn't recognize her, okay? The lead lady, interesting name on her. Her name was like Tiger Fence or some weird shit. Like, she had some hippy dippy name, like she was River Phoenix's cousin, or Joaquin Phoenix's cousin, like just some interesting name. I don't recall seeing her before, but I saw kind of her roommate, another nun, Marcia Marcachabolo or some shit. I've seen her in some other stuff. Both of these women quite attractive. And I was just, the movie's really well made. I mean, this is a 4-star horror film. I really can't take anything away from the film. Everything's on point. The storytelling, I mean, maybe I won't spoil this thing as much as I usually do, because the story, like, if you like horror, you should see this one. The storytelling, there's plenty of reveals. Like, some of the reveals maybe I should have seen coming, but I didn't. And so that was kind of nice to actually get surprised by stuff in a film. You feel sympathy for some characters that maybe you shouldn't, but you do. What else? I mean, everything was there. The cinematography was great. The acting, I thought, was really great. I mean, but it didn't feel like acting. Like, you felt like you were in this monastery or this nunnery, whatever it's called, with all these nuns. But that kind of led me to this point, though. Okay, you ready? Towards the end of the film, because the movie is a hearty, I think it's 2 hours and 2 minutes or some such thing. But towards the end of this experience of watching this film, I kind of had like this little moment where I'm like, you know what? I kind of feel sorry for like actual nuns. You know what I mean? Like, everyone says, these, what's her name? Angel Reese, the female basketball player, is saying, oh, I've been sexualized. Meanwhile, she's, posting photos of herself in a bikini and so forth on Instagram. So that's like the big thing now. Like, you can sexualize yourself. You can put yourself in bikini shots and thongs and all these other wonderful things. But then you get to complain that you're being sexualized. Well, a nun, real life nuns, not these Hollywood movie nuns, but real life nuns, they're not sexualizing themselves. They're not mystifying themselves or whatever the fucking themselves. They're not horrifying themselves. They're just being nuns. You know what I mean? Now look, we can sit there and debate about this and say, should they be nuns? Should they not be nuns? What about priests? Where do they fit in? How about a rabbi? We can have all our little arguments about these things. But at the end of the day, they've made their choice, just like we've all done our thing. We're doing whatever we're doing, and these nuns are doing what they're doing. So who are we to judge? Yet in the cinema world, we exotify them. We, they're objects. Typically, these nuns in the horror films it's like basically you want to fuck them. You know what I mean? Like, because they're always like hot young nuns that are giving up their sexuality in order to serve God. And as the male audience member, we're like, what a waste. And basically these nuns are put in these situations where they're getting fucked by somebody, some god or some evil priest or some shit or some handyman is having sex with these nuns. And you're just sitting there like, what's with us? Like, we're the fucking weirdos. I mean, you know, granted, they're, you know, wearing a fucking beekeeper outfit for the rest of their lives, but we're the ones, you know, sexualizing them and trivializing them and putting them in movies. And even like the Blues Brothers, which is a great movie, but you see them whacking away, like the evil nun is whacking away on Jake and Elwood's knuckles with the ruler. And I mean, yeah, Sydney Sweeney is a fucking nun in The Immaculate. All these nuns, but they always like cast really hot women to play nuns. And then there's all these older nuns that are like all grouchy and fucked up and old. So we're weird. Like we as society have to come to some conclusions. We need therapy about our feelings towards these nuns. And as a matter of fact, I can't remember the last time I saw a nun in real life, to be honest with you. Why wouldn't I be honest with you? I've seen in recent years in Pennsylvania, you know, like the people with the buggies, the horse and buggies shit. I've seen that. I've gone to an Amish market where the kids are like 12 and they're fucking selling you food and stuff. I've seen all these wonderful things. I was somewhere in Florida last year and I saw a little person, you know what I mean? I saw a little person in Texas, a ticket taker as a matter of fact. I've got a whole weird thing about that, like just to myself, but also to you. I feel when I see a little person, I'm going to have a lucky day. And then I feel bad because I wonder, like, if they see a tall person, do they think they're going to have a lucky day? Probably not. But I exotify them. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's a little person. So I think they're fucking, Captain McCrunch or whatever the fuck. Or Leprechaun Leppy or whatever the fuck. So, I mean, I give you this. I'm pretty fucked up when it comes to these things. But just being honest, having fun. What else? So this movie, it's got, I mean, here's the thing that kind of, like, I'll be on, you know, why am I saying I'll be honest with you? I always am. I'm always so goddamned honest. However, I just have that verbal tick in my throat tonight. Oh, it's the devil. It's the devil is my throat. What the fuck? Just, okay. I had to close my eyes several times. Pregnant woman getting sliced in the belly. They're not, you know what I mean? Like they're taking the fucking devil seed out of her. There's a shot early in the film. It's not even like a horror shot, but it's like a close-up of fingernails, and they're like cleaning it out. Like someone's cleaning their fingernails with like a fucking knife or something. There's just, like I always tell you in these reviews, the small digit fractures like fingers and toes and ankles and Achilles heels getting slashed, I can't watch that shit. I watch the movie. I just have to close my eyes. But this one has a whole lot of stuff here's a goddamn spoiler, but pictures of these like fucking stillborn demon babies, like the babies of the devil that have come out and haven't survived. Disturbing. I mean, but that's the point. It's a horror film. It's not a comedy. It's not a Julia Roberts rom-com from 1989, okay? So you see all these disturbing images. I mean, I think that fucks me up now. It's like baby stuff, you know what I mean? Like demon babies. I don't know. Just, but it's a horror film, so what the fuck? But I mean, I think about this, Immaculate, Sydney Sweeney, of course. I feel like if you were to head-to-head these two movies, the only thing Immaculate has over this one is Sydney Sweeney, okay, and her attractiveness. This one is full of stuff, though. I mean, like I said, it's well made. It's like everything. I think they made pretty much the best movie they could make with this. If you're going to make a prequel to The Omen, this is pretty much it. So I'm not complaining. I think they did the best they could. It's just, how many fucking nuns inseminated by the devil movies do we need? You know? So, another little point of fact, I don't think that the original Omen, unless I missed it, the 1976, a lot of times when they do these movies, these like reboots or, you know, Top Gun Maverick or whatever the fuck, some sequel or prequel from a movie that's 30 or 40 years old, or in this case, unbelievably 48 years old, typically they re-release the original out for a couple of days, so the fucks like me that want to get refreshed can get refreshed. For instance, I had never seen the original Avatar film, and then when they had the sequel come out, I've been saying this. People give me a hard time. You never saw Avatar? Okay. So when they were going to make this sequel to it, The Way of Water, they re-released the original one, which I got to go see in the big time theater. So I did. And then the new one came out shortly thereafter. So that was fun. So my point being this, I do not think that happened with The Omen, okay? I think I did not get to see the original Omen recently. I don't even know. I know that I've seen The Omen. I remember Damien and the 666 routine, but I don't remember that movie being anything like this as far as the special effects, the gruesome factor. I think it was more of those traditional mid-70s, late 70s movies that kind of got by on story and suspense and stuff like that. So they just didn't have the budgets, or they didn't have the whatever the fucks for a horror film back yonder. So anyway, so now it kind of feels like they're going to have to remake the original Omen, you know what I mean? Like, because this movie that I saw tonight has all these production values, you can't just say, okay, we're going to go from the first Omen, and now you watch the 1976 version. Nope. They're going to have to go and fucking remake the 1976 version with all the bells, whistles, and actresses of this one. I mean, that's what's coming, folks. That's why I stuck around the end credits to see what was going to happen. A little peek, a little teaser. And perhaps they're sticking this one out there to see if the audience responds and wants to see that sequel. You know, like, that used to be the way. I mean, I don't know if you find folks are old enough to remember this, but back in the day, as we used to say, they would make a movie, they being the producers, the studios, the distributors, etc., they would make a movie and then see if the audience actually paid money to see it before they pulled the trigger on a sequel. Now, with things like Megan, okay, like, they pretty much know if a movie's going to have a certain audience before they even release it. Like, while they're making it, they're deciding whether or not to make a sequel. Terrifier, Megan, etc. And I think very few times do they pull the plug on sequels once the wheels are in motion. Although I did see some type of Yahoo News story of, like, movies so bad that the sequel didn't get made or shit like that. Anyway, I did see an interesting thing. Speaking of Megan, they're going to sell these whoever the fuck, the people that have the rights to do this are going to sell Megan dolls, like life-size Megan dolls. Now, no offense, but I know some of you guys are going to do some dirty things with those goddamn dolls. So just keep yourself in check, gentlemen. It's just a doll. So what else? What else? I don't know. I still haven't seen Monkey Man. That's on the agenda. I'm glad I saw this in Dolby Digital. Once again, thanks to all these new subscribers, new European friends who are checking in. One guy said I looked like the bargain American, what was the name, Jay Wells or some such thing. So I did a quick Google of this individual, and not really. I mean, the guy's much older than me, does have long hair. I don't know his persona. I didn't get to sit and watch videos yet of this individual, but who knows? Maybe he's an intellectual like myself. Did have nice hair, though. I haven't always had this long hair, everyone. It's just, I haven't cut it. I've been saving money, and I don't want to pay $40 for a haircut anymore. Who gives a fuck? So anyway, MikeMessier.com. Scroll to the bottom. You can buy one of my books. You can stand me on social. Just go to MikeMessier.com and scroll to the bottom. You'll see Fight or Play Basketball. You'll see A Distance from Avalon. If you want to see my acting, Seduction of Distance, One Man and a Camera Films, yes, I make films, so on and so forth.